I want to share a story of a contrast between my first book deal,
Good. Yeah.
which was miraculous the way it unfolded, but I didn't think it should work that way. And my newest book deal, which was kind of miraculous and cool, but it's exactly how I thought it should be. So I had wanted to write a book for a while, and I thought I should write a book, to be honest. It was because a couple of my students from NLP had written books, and I was like, well, they learned that from me, I should write a book. And I had a couple of goes, and it didn't really happen, and I had an experience that I was telling Dickon about with this cab driver named Adolf. And it's in the first book. And I just realized, I really want to write a book, but I thought I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to hire a coach. So I talked to Cheryl Richardson and a few other people that I'd met, and I said, who should I hire if I want to write a book? And everyone gave me one name, so I went to hire, and the way it worked is you paid her whatever it was, and she would read a proposal and a sample chapter and your platform statement, like why people would buy your book. And if she thought you were worth her time, she would coach you. And I was pretty confident because I had ghosted books, I'd edited books. I knew, I wasn't concerned, I can't write. Well, she said to me, essentially, I always use the analogy of Fred Astaire's screen test. You know the story? So Fred Astaire, his screen test, his first screen test, there's actually, you can find it on the internet. It said, can't act, can't sing, balding, can dance a bit. Right? And so he was right into the reject pile. It worked out okay for Fred. Right? Well, that was kind of her critique of my writing. It was like, well, I don't think you understand what it takes to actually make it as an author. You seem to have much too lighthearted an approach, like this is just going to happen, like you're not going to have to put the slog in. But your writing's not bad. So if you're willing to take on this 21-point action plan, and she said, and I'll be honest with you, it's only your writing that's even keeping me in conversation with you about it. We can get you, within a year we can get you an agent, within 2 years a deal, and within 3 years you'll have a book on the shelves. Take a week to think about it. Now, I was crushed because I really thought I was the great white hope and that she was going to go, oh my God, where have you been all my life? Finally. And I knew I wasn't going to do the 21-point plan. That was very obvious to me. But I just thought I should give it a week. So that was wisdom. I didn't know that was wisdom. I thought that was kind of delaying my losership. Right? I'll put off being a loser and a wimp and dropping out for a week and see if I feel differently. Well, on the Friday of that week, it was Monday I had the meeting, on the Friday of that week, I kind of woke up and thought, you know what, nothing in my life has ever worked the way it's supposed to. I don't see any reason why this is going to be different. I'm going to write it, and if nobody reads it, nothing ever happens, I've written a book. So again, I just saw that as a random act of hopefulness. Right? I didn't see, well, no, I made space. I left it. I let it, all my thinking about it settle. And in that space, something from that deeper space, that truth within, that deeper consciousness came through. And it just occurred to me as an idea, yeah, I'm going to do it. On the Saturday, a client I hadn't talked to for a couple of years, who used to be head of publicity for MTV Europe, said, hey, I've been thinking about you. It's crazy that you're not a bigger deal. Have you ever thought of writing a book? I said, well, funny you should mention that. Just yesterday I decided. And she said, well, let me talk to some people. Let me set up some meetings for you when you're next over. I'm like, now I would go, of course that's how it works. Right? Because when you move, the universe moves too. That just seems to be how it works. But then it was like, this is weird. The Sunday I get a call from my friend Paul McKenna. Some of you know Paul, best-selling self-help author in the world. I'd edited some of his books. So he calls me up and he said, hey, I was with my literary agent at a party last night. We were talking about you. He heard your CDs and he really liked them. You know, he's interested. Have you thought of writing your own book? I said, well, funny you should mention that. Now I'm kind of like going, okay, this is weird. Right now it's not weird, it's cool. Because this is something that always happens. It's not that I can predict what's going to happen, but it's damn predictable something is when you start moving with this movement. Well, 3 weeks later, I signed with the agent. 3 weeks after that, Hay House signed me to a 2-book deal. 1 year, 1 month after the meeting with the original coach who told me 3 years I might have a book on the shelf if I changed my life and who I was #1 on the bestseller list in the UK. And I still didn't get it. I thought, wow, that was weird. And then carried on trying to set goals and make things happen and do them the way I'd always taught people to do them. Well, over time I started to see this is just how it works. We open ourselves up to a deeper wisdom. And that wisdom has an intelligence. It's creative. And sometimes it feels like, you talk about wisdom having her way with you. I feel like sometimes I get impregnated by wisdom. And sometimes I'm just the midwife. But I'm never the man in this one. Right? It's just the way it is. And now, so what happened this time around? I got the sense last September that there was something brewing. I was ready to write something new. It's been a couple of years since Inside Out Revolution. It wasn't I'd had I should write the next book, and the publisher had said, you should write another book, but I didn't. But this was the first time where I kind of felt, and I kind of knew I wanted it to be 2 books. I wanted the third one, so Inside Out Revolution being the first of a trilogy, I wanted the third one to be Creating the Impossible. And the middle one was the one about this. It was the one about this space inside. But I didn't have the language for it, and I had a lot of thinking about it. And I knew by then not to try and make it happen, not to set a goal, not to put a time frame on it, just to stay with it and let it unfold. Well, one of the things that occurred to me is, boy, I'd love to talk with Elsie Spittle about this. Now, Elsie and I, at that point, we hadn't spent much time together, but we were friendly. I knew she'd loved Inside Out Revolution and had been very kind to me about it. So I figured, and none of the dates that we had talked about could work. And she finally said, well, look, I can come out in May and do this thing because I decided to do this series. And so it was great. Well, okay, we'll do that. Well, what started to happen, as I expected it would, because now I was wise to it, was I would get little ideas from time to time, just because I was even though I wasn't thinking about it, thoughts were coming. And I'd get little ideas and little frames, and I even knew, I taught a Thrive weekend, the weekend before Elsie was due to come out. And I was talking there, and I said, it's almost there, this middle book, this next book. And it's not quite there, but it'll come next weekend when Elsie's here. And I just knew. And I even got, I got a chapter outline when I was waiting for my bag at the airport, and boom, download, chapter. Elsie came. You guys, some of you were here. There couldn't have been a more perfect weekend for this book. It was just an experience of what I was trying to describe in the book. I spent some time with Elsie. I got very clear. Again, I still didn't try to make a deal happen. I just was aware, okay, now I know what I'm talking about. I'm comfortable enough with this to present it. I did think I should write it up, but I didn't, because I know that thought isn't of this same energy. So then I called my agent up, and I said, hey, there's a book almost ready to happen. Can we have a chat, just chat it through? Because I kind of knew chatting it through would bring it more into form. It would bring it more out of here, from here, out of here, out into here. And we had a chat, we came up with some ideas, but it still wasn't quite right. He said, why don't you go away and think about it, because I don't want to pitch it like this. Yeah. Well, then in May, was it May when I was over? So in May, I was asked to speak at the Hay House Writers Workshop, and I was speaking, and it happened that the head of Hay House was the other speaker, and so it went really well. It was going really well, and I just, without even knowing it, without having thought about it, without meaning to, I said, hey, can I talk to you at lunch? I've got an idea I want to run by you. And then in my head I went, oh, I guess I'm going to pitch the book. And then I sat down with him at lunch, pitched actually 3 books. Completely to my surprise, they not only went for the books, they went for the launch schedule that I wanted, and they offered me more money than I'd ever made. It was like this. Now, the only difference, I was still kind of like, God, this is cool. But it was actually now I understood this is just how it works. It wasn't special. It wasn't because I did something right. I visualized the right things. I thought that it was just, I just allowed it. I did. Right? That's the astronaut's prayer. Literally was the astronaut's prayer. Dear God. That was what they used to say before they went into space. That was it. It was like, because it was just unfolding. I was along for the ride. That's my experience of what it is to be open to possibility as opposed to trying to make things happen. Discuss.